Hey there, it's Seb Fry here with another exciting episode of It's a Seb Show. And today I want to talk about something that's nasty, ugly, mean, vicious that's happening out there in the real estate market today. That's right, I'm going to talk about non-contingent offers. It's happening all over the place. Now, if you were to go around my website, sebfry.tv, or the YouTube channel, you could probably find a number of different episodes where I've talked about contingencies and as-is sales and all that. But I don't think I've talked about this yet. And that is the phenomenon of people writing and sellers insisting upon non-contingent offers for their homes. So let's back up a little bit. Back in the olden days, which would be like 2019, when you wrote an offer to buy a property in the state of California, you used the standard realtor purchase agreement, which we still use today. In that purchase agreement, there are built-in several contingencies. So you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to buy your house on these price and terms, but a few things have to happen. One of those things that has to happen is that I have to have an inspection period. I get to check out the property and do my due diligence, do some inspections, make sure that it is largely as it has been presented to me, that I'm getting the value that I think I'm getting for the price that I've offered. Then there would be an appraisal contingency, which if you're going to get a loan, you're probably going to need to get an appraisal, right? So the offer would say it's contingent upon the property appraising for, at least the offer price. And then the loan contingency saying like, okay, well, listen, my loan needs to happen. If for whatever reason I'm denied the loan, then I can't buy your property and I get all my deposit money back. So that's how it normally is supposed to go. But in Silicon Valley, for a while now, there have been many non-contingent offers, right? You have these incredibly wealthy people, and like they're paying all cash. They're very savvy and sophisticated, and so they'll write offers without any contingencies on them, right? Just like no inspection contingency, no loan contingency, no appraisal contingency. Now they may be getting a loan, right? But they will have no loan contingency or no appraisal contingency because they feel that their down payment is big enough, their credit is solid. That's really, loan, denial of their loan just isn't going to happen. So you've always had this kind of behavior going on in like competitive markets with like well-heeled buyers, right? That's not a new phenomenon. But now we're seeing it really even at the bottom end of the market because there's so many people who are like looking for real estate in, all price ranges and all locations because inventory is so low. People have to be so competitive that a lot of buyers are making non-contingent offers. They're saying, I don't need an inspection contingency. I don't need a loan or appraisal contingency, even in cases where there are no existing reports on file for the property. So, a buyer is always responsible for doing their own due diligence, their own inspections. Smart sellers will do a home inspection and a termite inspection and maybe get some bids for repair and have that in there to present to the buyer. And in that case, a buyer, might feel more comfortable about not even doing any inspection contingency. But now we're seeing like homes where the seller doesn't even do a home inspection or termite inspection or anything. The buyer basically is going into the offer based on just what they've seen as they walk through the property. And so we're seeing this now in all markets, all levels of price, all type of property. People are writing these non-contingent offers, and or sellers are insisting that buyers make non-contingent offers because there's just so many people wanting to buy their property that sellers really are in the driver's seat. So the big question is this okay? Is this a good thing? On the surface, certainly for a seller, it seems to be a good thing because what do sellers want? They want a lot of money, they want a sure deal, and they want a fast close. And having non-contingent offers, supports all three of those goals that almost every seller is looking for. However, a very important question is, should you go into contract with no contingencies for the buyers whatsoever? The folks in risk management, the lawyers who advise realtors, we have to go to these risk management seminars. They'll tell you, always make sure your buyer has some kind of contingency for inspections, even if it's just 3 days or 5 days. Just at least give them some time so that if there is a problem after closing, the buyer doesn't go back to you, try to sue you and saying, hey, I wasn't given an inspection period. I didn't have an opportunity to do my due diligence. So in that case, what are you going to do, right? Well, you can avoid that whole problem by making sure that the buyer does have a contingency. Now, if you're a buyer, is it smart to be making non-contingent offers? Now, if you're paying cash and if you're like really savvy and the house is pretty, vanilla, like it's on a flat lot, it's a relatively recent construction, there are no signs of distress in the property, just normal sort of wear and tear, you might want to go and take that risk, because if the house has been there for 20 years, it's in good shape, it's probably going to continue to stand for a long period of time. I'm not saying that you should make an offer like that, but I can see how a reasonable person who is experienced, who knows what they're doing, who has at least some satisfactory reports provided by the seller, could reasonably say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a non-contingent offer. Now, but what if you're getting a loan? So if you're getting a loan, what about your loan contingency and your appraisal contingency? Well, very good question. So if you have a big enough down payment, like, let's say you're putting down 50% or 40 or even 30% down, if you're making a big down payment, you probably don't need it actually to appraise at any one particular price, because the appraisal, if it's off, it probably is not going to be off by a lot, and you just have to maintain your debt to equity ratio for the purposes of the loan when you're getting it. So if you have a big enough down payment, you will still have a high enough ratio for the loan if it should appraise low. The other question is waiving your loan contingency. Well, I advise all buyers to work with a top-tier, gold-plated, platinum-studded lender. If you are working with a lender like that, and you have gone through the credit approval process, and you have been blessed, and you've been told that you're good to go, you're probably going to be okay there. Certainly, there is some risk that you will be denied the loan. Personally, after all these years in business, people who are pre-approved with a really great lender and who don't have any kind of like skeletons in their credit profile, I have not really seen much in the way of loans actually getting denied, except where people do have some kind of shaky credit. So if your credit is shaky, probably not a good strategy for you. If you've got great credit and a stable job and good income, then it's probably not going to be a problem for you. Now, interestingly enough, in December, this is now January, so in December, last month, I had a deal, and the buyer made it non-contingent. It was a totally non-contingent offer, and the seller had some old reports, not new reports. They had some reports that were like 4 years old from when they bought the property, and the buyer made a non-contingent offer, and then after they made their offer, after we were in contract, several days later, the buyer says, hey, I want to do a home inspection. Very interesting, like you're doing a home inspection after you've already gone into contract on a non-contingent offer. And so they went into contract, they went and got their home inspection done. Now the seller actually could have denied them the right to do a home inspection, because you only have a right to inspect the property during your inspection contingency period, but they didn't have an inspection contingency period. We could have said no, but then what if something bad happened after closing? Well, that would be like a ticking time bomb, right? I mean, like there's a lot of potential for a problem there. So because we felt we had nothing to hide, we told the buyer, okay, go ahead, come on through and do your home inspection. And so the buyer did their home inspection, and interestingly enough, just case in point, the buyer was actually a general contractor, and that person had already inspected the property, but he wanted like a detailed list of things he might need to fix from a home inspector, supposedly. That was the story anyway. Home inspector goes through and he says, I discovered some cracks in the foundation, which were not indicated in the homeowner's old inspection reports. And so big brouhaha about that. What are you going to do at that point, right? The buyer didn't have a contingency, and then they did the inspections, and then they found a problem with the house. What do you do in that case? What can you do? Well, in this case, it was basically a big hullabaloo about nothing, because, yeah, there apparently was a crack in the foundation, but cracks in foundations are very typical. I would say, after a certain age, 20 or 30 years, or maybe a little more, almost every house is going to have a crack or 2 or 3 in the foundation. Concrete is designed to crack. It's not like the end of the world. And in this case, they were using the McDonald's of home inspectors. I won't say the name of the home inspection company, that they use, but it's basically the McDonald's of home inspectors. And the home inspector said, oh, I made a mistake. It wasn't multiple cracks. There was just one little old crack. So, several days of angst and wailing and gnashing of teeth and stress on everybody's part melted away into nothing once they realized there was nothing. There's no there in the case of that particular crack. But those are the kinds of things that can happen when people are making a non-contingent offer, because even if they do that non-contingent offer, things can come up. So just because you get a non-contingent offer on the sale of your home, don't think that you are by any means home free, because as those of us who are in the real estate business will tell you, anything can happen and it ain't over till it's over. So don't count your chickens before they hatch. All right, well, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of It's a Seb Show, and that you learned something about making a non-contingent offer. You know what I would love? Oh, man, I would love this. Would you give me a comment? Would you give me a thumbs up? Would you give me a share? If you shared this with somebody that you know who is thinking about possibly making a non-contingent offer or accepting a non-contingent offer on their home, I would totally love it if you would do that. All right, well, that's it for this episode, but don't worry. I will have another episode up again before too long.